What's up, everyone? Bradley Jack Design here with another lovely day of critiquing your designs from my Discord. I hope you guys had a lovely holiday, lovely New Year's. But we're back on the grind, ready to give you guys my advice on what I think could make your designs a little bit better, or to give you a pat on the back for doing a good old job. All right, so we got my pen in the right spot. We're good to go. Let's make it, see what we got going on here. All right, I can scribble on here. We're good to go. All right. We got a lot of submissions this week, which is great. So we're going to start off with EvanG Designs. Got this design of Damian Lillard. A little bit of an Adidas logo there. Always good to do. Got a Nike logo here, which is funny though because it's an Adidas thing, but it's Nike. But he's an Adidas athlete. You can't do anything about that. It's the league. All right, I like the little EvanG designs down here in the corner. I think it's kind of nice. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So compositionally, there's a lot of things I like to talk about. If you've seen these before, composition is one I like to harp on a lot. So just for me, compositionally, this balance is a little bit to the right. I like you've got the big guy here and you've got little guy here. Then you've got him here. I think if his head was right here, it would just balance better and you'd have this better triangle instead of this really narrow triangle. Like what's going on here? Like it's just a little bit balanced to the side. So that's just one thing I probably would have tweaked, or enlarged this all so it takes up and fills the space, because you have this circle you're using but you're just kind of like leaning over here. Like these are balanced in the center sort of, but then this weighs heavy over to the side. I like the effect you've got going on, the little 3D thing going on over here with his name and Dame Time here. I think it's a little too much everywhere else. Man, I thought for a second you like blacked out his tooth here because I marked there. I was gonna be like, what are you doing? So I like it there. I think it's there's a little too much on him. Like I like it on the background because I usually use displacement maps as like trying to sell the idea that there's light or something, or a little bit of a distortion. I use it as like a texture, not an overall theme. So you've got like an overall theme of that, but I think if you just left a couple of spots a little bit cleaner and maybe kept like this area might be fine, but leave it here. You know, don't touch this stuff. Don't touch them in the front. Maybe just keep it on the edges so the center of your design shines a little bit more. The texture you've got going on in the back's pretty good. It looks like it might only be at the top. I think you just took this and made it a little bit larger. I could be wrong. Overall, not bad. Just a couple little things I would have changed. But it's a clean graphic. There's good contrast with the background and the foreground. I think you really just need to move this guy over there and maybe just tone down some of the distortion you have. All right, up next we've got MP97 Designs. A big MP down here you can see. We got Steph Curry here. Steph Curry up in the corner here. So let me think. What do I think when I see this? So like to me, there's a lot of effects going on. So like I think compositionally it's pretty solid because you're just kind of guided kind of like this. You know, you look in this sort of arc. So I don't think that's bad. I would have maybe just moved Curry over a little bit here so you see his elbow a little bit more just to fill in this space a little bit. I feel like some areas, like the lighting seems really soft in some of these areas. It's the only way I can sort of describe it. It just seems a little soft and not as defined as it could be. You've got a lot going on here. Like you've got this hex in the background. You've got like this random like sort of technology looking flare and Curry going on in the background with the hexagons. Then you've got the water down here, which makes sense, which I've seen before, but you know, it makes sense for Steph. I'm not crazy about these sort of generically looking splashes. This one on the left doesn't look too bad. This one on the right kind of gets a little bit lost. But then you also have like electricity here, which I'm kind of confused by, and then like I guess the moon, and then I don't know, another planet down here. So you've got like planets mixed with technology, mixed with just the Golden Gate Bridge back here. I think there's too much going on in the background. I would have toned it down a little bit to let the composition in the front shine a little bit more. I like that you're trying to make the ball light up here. I don't think it's done as successfully as it could because it's not being realistic with the lighting here. Like, to really accentuate this, you would have this be blue around it, and then maybe this side would be shaded, but instead you just have sort of light coming from all around, which is fine how you lit it, but if you have multiple light sources, try and make sure that matches. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, just overall, I think some of the lighting is a little soft in some of these areas. Let me see it not coming off. And there's just like some spot. I think there's a lot of areas that are really spot highlighted, so you kind of can't tell what's going on. And then is this in a bubble? Like, I just noticed that now. Like, there's just a lot going on. I like that you're experimenting and trying stuff. Like, I think this down here, like everything below here is really successful. You know, this is okay. But like these elements you've got going on with the water is decent. You know, maybe his foot's in the water instead. Then you don't really need the splash. But like this atmosphere stuff's pretty solid, and I like how this goes over. Like that's nice. But then you don't continue that up here. You put in planets and this big light. Oops, that's someone else's. We'll get to that later. Whoops, let's go back. We lost it. Here's everything we're gonna look at. Might have that on there twice actually. Oh well. But then like you've got like technology over here. Like if you just got rid of this and put like just a nice Golden Gate Bridge in the background, I think it would have been a little bit more successful. But for me, I think there's a little too much going on. All right, up next we got CT Designs, De'Aaron Fox, point guard number 5 for the Sacramento Kings, averaging some good points. So let's see what we got going on here. I think it's a pretty good graphic. You've got nice symmetry. You've got stuff in the middle. You've got it dead center. There's balance. You know, maybe move this up a little bit. You know, maybe like I mean like 4 or 5 pixels. I don't know. This is pretty decent. Down here, the text, maybe a little bit of padding in between just to give it a little bit more air to breathe, but not really that big of a deal. You know, I don't know why you have just like this random rip through the logo in the center, but I do like the shadow you've got going on here. I think that shadow looks pretty nice for the rip, so that's pretty good. As for him himself, like when I saw this, like, so these guys all look like they're standing in the same sort of spot. So it looks like to me it's like triplets, and this is the small triplet, this is the big triplet, and this is the little triplet. But I like what you have going on. These guys look almost the same size just based on head size, but this guy looks small. Maybe just bump him up a little bit so they're all the exact same size. That way they're one element of 3 instead of sort of an element of 2 and then an element of 1. Your hierarchy could just be 3 guys all the same size, but they're all right next to each other, clumped up, so they control the viewer as one object. I mean, I think the editing's good on here. You know, maybe couple areas, like the purple's good on here. Maybe it's just a little undetailed, I guess. It's not as fine as it could be. It's not muddy. It's just like if I went and used a big brush instead of went in with a little brush and just hit, you know, little spots or whatever. Shadows look good though, so that's good as well. Overall, pretty solid. No real complaints. 209 Tacos. We got Fred Warner here. Fred Warner of the San Francisco 49ers. Initial thoughts here. Compositionally, I see we've got Fred, name, you know, where we need to look. I think there's a little too much space here for the composition. Like balance-wise, I think if you moved this Fred over a little bit, had him right here, maybe made this Fred a little bit bigger so he commanded a little bit more space, I think the composition would flow a little bit better. And then, like, this text is really hard to read. like, I don't think you need this big black drop shadow, because when you have black on red, it doesn't look right. It's sort of unsettling. It's hard to read black on red or red on black. So I think if you just had Fred Warner, same thing with like the 49ers, like they're gonna hate this drop shadow. Like if this was a real project for them, they're gonna tell you to get rid of this drop shadow. Also, this looks too dark to be their logo. Like their actual logo is much lighter. Let me see if I can pull it up. We'll see if that loads. Let me see here. I think I have... Might just be the NBA logo. It's like the NBA. Okay, never mind. As for the background, I think you've got a lot going on in the background, and it's just sort of things in the background. Like you've got this texture you've got multiplied that's black and dark, and then you've got just random X's as texture. Then you've got this like brush chalky texture in the background. There's just a lot of attention being done there. There's a lot of contrast with the white and the dark reds that it's detracting from this front part here, which is where you want them to look. Because when you look at this, you kind of see him here, and then you go over here, and then you're kind of like, oh, there's stuff in the background. Oh, it says his name. Why is this logo so dark? You know, and then it's like, I don't know where to go. There's nothing guiding me back here to sort of restart the process of looking around. Those are a couple things I would probably tweak. I think there's a little too much contrast here, or too much clarity. It's just a little bit, like it's hard to, just a little, not crispy, but just a little too dark. But I like what you're trying to do with the composition, or with the square here. I think you did a good job of that. I think just some compositional things, you know, trying to make the text as easy to read as possible, I think is always a good thing to do as well. All right, what do we got next? Come on. What is happening? My Photoshop's like, nah, I'm good. Oh, we've got this Jalen Waddle graphic by Jaden Preston. Sorry, I said that completely wrong. So we got a couple Jalen Waddles. We've got a photo of him in the background, and then we have a bunch of bubbles and waves and glows and stuff. So right off the bat, like, I like this background photo you have of Jalen, but you cover it with this big ass bubble, like, and it contrasts so much. You just like stare here, and you just look at this bubble, and there's nothing in this bubble, which is fine, but since it's covering up a face, like, we're going to want to look at face, we're going to want to look at the eyes just as humans, and then you cover his face up, which is a little distracting. You know, take this and put it down here, so the bubble's right here. Like, I did a Ja Morant graphic, and I made sure that Ja's face was completely clear, but, like, this is fine. You know, it's not covering up anything that we want to stare at. This is fine. The other bubbles seem to be okay, but then you don't have any bubbles down here. Oh, you've got one down here, but I could barely see it with the contrast. You know, maybe add another bubble here where it's darker. You'd be able to see the contrast a little bit better. I also personally would have put him dead center. Jeez, I need to stop dragging that down. So, like, if I go to view and I make a new guide from layout, so, like, make guides that are dead center. Put his nose dead center, just so he's at the center of the composition, because otherwise everything's balanced over here on accident. So you got Jalen Waddle there. You know, he's just like awkwardly hanging out then over here. Like, why is his arm cut off? Why isn't he just over here more? Or I would have made both of these guys smaller, just because, like, there's a lot of stuff happening up here. Not a lot going on right here. Some stuff going on here because that's where his pants are. But if you would have set up the composition a little bit neater for size contrast, I think that would have helped out. The waves in the background aren't bad. They're not totally distracting, but I think you're covering them up here. I would get rid of this glow. It's just, it just looks really default, like I hit a button and added a glow. It's not adding anything to the scene. And then, like, his name down here, like, you can't even read that this says Jalen. Like, it's, I don't know what the intent was behind that, because it's blurry. But then you have Waddle in front with this big black stroke around it. But then you cover up a blurry Jalen with no black stroke. I just don't understand what you were trying to do there. And I see you used a displacement map, but it doesn't match up to anything. It's just kind of like, Here's a displacement map. You know, you can only really tell that it's here. If I look everywhere else, it's like kind of here as well. But like if you do the displacement map and it doesn't add anything to it and you can't see it, then I wouldn't even add it. I would just leave it out. So like compositionally, you know, try and work on a hierarchy. Because if I look at this, I don't know what the hierarchy is. Because basically, as a viewer, I see this, which is good. You want him to see this. But then you cover it up, your most important piece, with this big bubble. And then once we're here, this has the most contrast with the background of his jersey. So you come down here, you don't even care about these guys. So think about that when you're making something in the future. I think that might help you out a little bit. All right, we got designed by Jake. We've got this drop the wave runners, now we run the wave. So it's just a shoe graphic of this wave runner shoe. Very similar style to what he has done in the past from what we have seen. I like how you've got, you know, cropped good here with, or clipped good here with the wave. I think that's pretty good. I think my question would be, what is the context or purpose of this graphic? You know, what are we trying to convey? Is this going to be an ad for this shoe? Is it just like a hype graphic for the shoe? You know, because you have the shoe here and you've got the text here, which I think is fine. I personally would have made this text a little cleaner without all the jaggedness, because it's everywhere else. You know, so it bleeds in with everything else. And it's just texture at this point. So like when I see this, and I see that this is nicely done. But then after this, it's just kind of like, okay, I see these things right here, and then I'm done with the graphic. Because this is all just blend-in texture. And it kind of all blends in together because everything's the same size. You know, there's a little bit of color contrast with the blue and the orange here. But, you know, these control the same power in the eyes. I would like to see you try to do something different, because, you know, you've submitted a couple of different compositions, which are really cool and they're great. But it's, you know, you do the same thing every time with the square. You know, maybe the square is a different thing. Like, I personally, you know, I'm not a huge sneaker guy. Like, who makes this shoe? You know, put their logo somewhere. Use their logo as the background here, you know, something like that. How can you incorporate other elements other than just the image into that? I do like the text, though, how you're playing with size contrast. And I think it's done pretty decently. You know, maybe space a little bit more in here, but it's not that big of a deal. You can still read it fine. But just a couple other things. Let's say you sort of mastered this sort of technique and way you put things together compositionally with textures and stuff and grit and grain and stuff like that. I want to see if you can do something else, you know, instead of just keep doing the same composition each time. It's a cool graphic though, so I just want to see what you can come up with next. All right, we got designs by Sam, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver. So I think this is pretty cool. Composition's pretty decent. It's balanced actually pretty well. They're both looking off in like different directions, which, you know, maybe if this were me, I would have put this Justin Jefferson right here, because then you would look here and he's looking at the text. You'd cover up the US Bank Stadium sign though, so I get why you probably didn't do that. I can't tell what this text is, which is fine because it's just texture. So no problem there. It might be his handle, because his handle's like Jetta's, I think. I like the little text you've got going on here. I think the text here is a little hard to read just because there's all the dots and it's so small. I think if you put it over here and maybe just got rid of this, so this was actually white, so this contrasted a little bit better with the text, I think that might have worked out a little successfully. I think overall you've got a lot of stuff going on in the background. And I don't know if I don't like it or if I think it's cool. I think you might have one or two elements that are too much. The text I think is nice and the yellow is good because you're contrasting the purple. I think you probably could get rid of a lot of the dots, or just have maybe a couple little areas of where dots like just fade in just a little bit. like a vignette of dots. Maybe that would look a little better. I probably would just get rid of this one completely. Like, I see it says 18, I get that's him, but like your main composition is this and this. I think you edited the images pretty well. They're pretty unique. I would get rid of this like weird thing you got going on here. Like you're trying to make it like a blur, but with lines. I probably would just get rid of that so you can really just let the photo and the editing you did shine. You've got like his hands and feet are glowing, but I kind of like it. Kind of a little unique thing, so I think that's pretty decent. I think just if you cleaned it up a little bit with less textures in the background, not a lot, and then got rid of the weird, sort of glow or, I don't know, line blur digital thing, I think that would make it a little bit more successful. And then, the text here does look kind of just placed second thought. Or, this is nice actually. I just noticed this, but I think that's nice. You do. Can't really read Minnesota, but if it's texture, who really cares? That's what I would have to say. And I like the dots down here. Like, I think these look cool, but I think just in some areas, like right, it doesn't need to be over his body or here. And I might just not like it because you can't read that text very well. I think it's a pretty cool graphic. Otherwise, we got Jared Klein with this Max Verstappen graphic. I think this was after he won. I don't remember. Anyway, I want to see someone do something, this is kind of more unique, but more unique with racing graphics, which is hard because, you've got this big Formula One car you have to use. So like, I know Johnny made one that was really cool because he actually built out a scene of like the street on a mountain top overlooking mountains and then had a composition of a couple people. But every single racing graphic is just, it's car down here, guy up here. But part of that is a ground is very easy to use as a ground because it's a ground. But regardless, let's take a look at what we got going on. This one's a little different because you've got some other elements in the background here and a different way to do the text in the front. And there's only so much you can do with these cars. I probably wouldn't have blurred the car just because it's like, here's the car, I would just want to see what it looks like without that. I'm not crazy about this font. Just because, like, I don't know, I don't like this N. It's just like, it's like a lowercase n. It doesn't emote power, I guess. It seems sort of like a passive font. I don't know. I also don't know what I feel about these guys. You've got these going on, like, I don't know why. It does fill in the space nice. I don't know. I really hate this this bevel and emboss you have on it just because it looks like it really just default. Hey, here's a bevel and emboss. Playing around with that. So the text I really don't care much for on this. I do like that you have it slanted because it makes you look at it longer because everything's slanted. And I think this looks cool. This, I don't know if this was in the actual photo. Like, this thing behind him, sort of a view board with the white up here. You did a good job adding the Red Bull Racing in this white space. And what if his arm overlapped this, so to give it a little bit more depth where his arm's forward? Because you really only have this tiny little photo of Max because you've got his name so huge. I think that might be it too. Is you've got these big three things vying for attention that none of them stand out when you look at this. And I haven't perfected the use of flares like this, but I feel like I always make them too big. I think they're a little large here. They're a little overbearing for when you're looking at this. And that's something I'm still working on too, is like how big, are flares. Like if you added this one's nice, or it could be, I don't know. Like this one doesn't distract. These sort of distract because they're super intense. And there's 3 of them. That's something I'm still trying to figure out myself as well. All right, Gianluca. We've got this Tua Tagovailoa graphic. I underwater. Got some dolphins. I think this dolphin's lit pretty well. This one's okay. I think it's a little, you know, it's blurry because it's like behind him. You know, this one's good. This one's good. I think this one adds a lot. This one's not bad, but like, he seems lighter than how dark his socks are. So I feel like I would just make him a little bit darker. This one I think is that wouldn't have this much of a highlight on it. It would be lighter up top than it is on the bottom, but I think this is blown out a little bit too much. The bubbles added is a good choice. I probably wouldn't have made them so transparent, just because if they were real bubbles, they wouldn't be semi-transparent bubbles. They would be very vibrant bubbles that would refract light off of it. So I think if you just had these as more full bubbles, I think it might be a little bit more successful. I think overall he's lit pretty decently for the lighting. Like I saw this and I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. This is good. The lighting up here. This is a dolphin here, I guess. You know, it's nice. I think it's fine there. I think if you had it slightly less blurry, maybe we'd see that it's a dolphin more. Because it could just be something undersea. Let me get rid of a lot of these Command Z's. Okay. I think you did a decent job highlighting him. I think just the highlights are a little too bright. I think this looks nice right here. You know, it's lit on the top, dark on the bottom. Little bit blown out here, but like this is really blown out, and I just don't think it's as realistic as it can be. You know, this is nice down here because this isn't as blown out as much. You know, it's because it's not going to be pure white because of the water or something. You know, just everything like dies down. I think is pretty solid, and like this is solid in here. It's just the highlights. I don't know why you like made his face a portal to white land. Like, what's going on here? Like, I don't understand. Because the rest of his skin isn't glowing. You know, it's just here. So, like, I don't know why you did that. I probably would have just had his, you know, normal face on here or photoshopped, like, a scuba mask on him or something. I like how you have the text here at the top, but it's just plain. It's just text. It's just Tua Tagovailoa. A little bit of spacing in between them, you know. Nothing else going on. I think if you would have just had like his signature here, it might have been a little bit better. I think Tua's signature is weird. Or maybe just add another element, just like a ghosted, you know, a ghosted one or something, or a ghosted Dolphins logo behind it, because it's just like text. Okay. I added text to it. Thank you. Overall, I think it's pretty decent. I think just a little bit of toning down the highlights would be a little bit better. Got the Man of the Day by Heston. We got Darnell Mooney, bear down. Mooney season. Caught a touchdown today for my beloved Chicago Bears. Alright, so I'm guessing this is supposed to be a wallpaper based on the layout. Otherwise, I don't know why you have the bricks like that. Because it seems to me like this is a wallpaper that you then just put on a brick background. Because if it's not supposed to be a brick background, I would have just had this stuff off bleed to the sides. Because if you did that, you'd have more room for balance, which I talk about a lot. Like, as I feel like I just want him to be like a little bit over here, and then him, I don't know, just a little bit over here, just like a teeny tiny bit. Because I feel like just the faces are too close to each other for the size. Because they're about the same size. But you do have, I mean, you've got balance on the sides. And maybe it's that I can see that there's space. And it could be because you have these stars here from the Chicago. So there's something here, there's nothing here. I want you to fill that space more with something. Maybe that's it. But let's take a look and see what you got going on. You got a signature down here, always good. You've got Bears Ghosted, which I've done before. I probably would just get rid of that. I think the shadows on the bear are a little off. I mean, you got yourself a big chunky grizzly bear. Like, look at this fur. Like, that is a hibernated grizzly bear for sure. But I can see like where the lines of grass were. Maybe use a different photo of a bear. But then like these shadows just look a little default. Like this one's not too bad on him, but then it's also on this person. But would it be on this person or would it be behind this person? Because I feel like this person would be, since he's lit and not covered by a shadow, I feel like you would need to make this a little bit lighter here. And if you're gonna put him over here, like you started to do something really great here, you put his leg in here, but you can see through it. So like, since this is a mirror, you know, make this fully reflecting of this area here, which is what you kind of started to do. I probably would have just kept one logo here. I think 3's a little distracting. And like brain guidelines, I don't think they would like that. And then like here, whoa, let's, you know, zoom around. I like what you got going on here with this, and I like what you're attempting with this. It's a little hard to read, and his name's impossible to read. Like from back here when I'm just looking at it, like I have no idea what this says. I probably would have just had it say Mooney, to be honest. Because it's Darnell Mooney. I do like that you having this little effect here, and I like the signature. I think some of the images are a little crispy, a little overcooked in certain areas. It's probably just the photo you found though. But it looks like you did a decent job of cutting his hair out, which is nice. I just think the photos are a little over edited. But I think this looks nice. The city's good. The skies, I think, looks nice. It all blends in together. You did a good job doing that. I think you just overcooked the photos a little bit. And then just a couple of the shadow things down here. But other than that, I think pretty solid. All right, Brennan, we've got Mookie Betts here. Pretty simple composition going on. Mookie in the middle, pretty dead center. Something I like to do. Nice symmetry going on. Let's see what we got going on. So like compositionally, you know, this Mookie's in the background. You know, it's in the text. I think it's good that you're doing that. But then you've got this Mookie over to the side, so it's really balanced to the right. You know, there's nothing over here that is commanding the eye. So I would have, if you're gonna put this in the dead center, put Mookie in the dead center running, and then maybe find a different photo or 2 photos that are ghosted so you can't really see them in the background text. I think that might have helped. And if you're gonna have all this stuff centered, which is what I would, you know, suggest, like this is just kind of hanging out. Like, you know, maybe center this so it lines up with the text. It's centered because you don't have anything else. If you had something over here, like your logo would balance out more and that would be fine. Let's see what else we want to say. I like how you've got the background in here. You know, maybe just do that on the whole floor. You know, maybe you have to use the stamp tool to stamp out some of these areas, but I would have probably done the whole floor because it's just a little, again, it's the right balance. There's a lot of texture and stuff over here, but there's nothing over here. So I think that would be something to tweak a little bit. I think the editing on him is pretty decent. You know, you did the black and white skin, which I haven't done in a while. It's always a fun thing to do. You know, I don't know why his jersey is really gray here. You know, I probably would have fixed that to be blue to match everything else. And then the lightning just seems to be a thing you did. You know, it's just kind of here. Like I can see right here where it looks like the lightning ends. If you're going to use it, make sure it cuts off. I gotta stop doing that. Do not save completely. So, you know, I don't know what else you can theoretically do. The background music stopped because these headphones died. I'm just wearing them for no reason. Okay, so, you know, I just think like intentionally, like I think the fog is nice on the text. I just don't know. I don't know why you put the fog or lightning on there. There's nothing on the graphic that indicates why you would do that. I think just a little bit of alignment issues. Maybe a couple other things you could have added. Besides lightning, something a little bit more Los Angeles specific. I think that might have helped a little bit. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. Life of a Zero. We've got this Alvin Kamara graphic. I hope he scores me all of the touchdowns for my fantasy football team. He is playing right now and has 9 points, so that's pretty solid. So he probably scored. Okay, so first thing I see right away is there's not a lot of contrast with the colors because everything has the same, I'm assuming, gradient map on top of it. And everything is, there's almost too much contrast because like you can't even tell that this is Alvin Kamara's face. You can kind of see his face here, but it's super dark. Like all the blacks are super, super dark. Like you took this and you put it in a copier and you said increase contrast a bunch and hit print. It even has like these copy lines that are dark, you know. I think the composition's pretty solid. I probably would have bumped this size up a little bit here. You know, this is good. The fleur-de-lis in the background. It's just hard to tell. It looks like you took a design and then just like put a huge big old filter on it and like crisped everything up and added a bunch of this grunge, which I don't think it needed. You know, but you've got some contrast here with the signature, which is good, and like this kind of fades out, but it looks like you just like crunched up the heck out of this design because you put it through like a blender. You know, the paper texture is fine. There's just I don't know what to focus on because everything's the same texture, everything's the same color. So there's not a lot of color contrast to keep me interested in looking at this. It's just kind of like, okay, here's everything's the same color. You know, I generally would like the foreground elements to contrast color-wise with background. You know, even if it's just his skin, because like it's all sepia. The composition's good. I just think you need to tone back a little bit on the overall harshness or how intense you do add some of these elements. What do we got here? Okay. Scroll down here. This is by EvanG. So, got a quote here about the bowls. The confusing thing about the quote, and that's why I kind of hesitated, is it starts off with DeRozan. But this is Zach LaVine. You know, so I have to read the whole thing. To me, the quote is small enough that I can ignore it based on everything else. Maybe if you had LaVine highlighted something so I know it's LaVine. Okay, that makes more sense. Maybe that's something I would have done. I like it. You know, it looks nice. I probably would have crunched it in a little bit just so you didn't have these 4 little, you know, orphans or widows at the bottom. So these were about equal in size. But that's besides the point. Let's take a look at the actual graphics. So like, I don't really have anything to say. I think it's great. You got my boy Luke Kennard here from Franklin, Ohio. It's down the street from me. You got ball blurred in the front, which I think is done pretty well. You've added these cool effects from like NBA 2K, I'm assuming, which is pretty sweet. You've got nice glow on the, you've got a nice subtle glow on the ball and a subtle glow on his hair that's realistic. I think that's good. You've got everything blurred in the background. I think it's blurred about the same. I feel like this looks blurrier than this one. I don't know why. I don't know, maybe make sure they're blurred the same. I think it's just because this is bigger, possibly. But then I can kind of read that this is 19-10, or 19-10 for wins and losses. It doesn't bug me, though, because I think Paul George and Zach LaVine command so much of the attention, and you kind of use this 19 to contrast it with the background a bit. And you did a good job, so I don't have anything to say. You edited the photos nice. I think the lighting looks good. I think just having like a key highlight up here in the text to say LaVine. Maybe if LaVine was just bolded, I think it would have made more sense because it applies to the player in the actual graphic instead of DeMar. All right, got a couple more to go. We got Musket Artworks with this Dak Prescott in the snow on a mountaintop composition. So I think this looks really nice here. You know, you've got Dak blurred out so much. It's just like this tiny little Dak here. You know, I would have made him bigger so his arm came out here if he commanded a little bit more space, because he's really hidden behind this text. And I like how the text is centered and stuff. I don't think that this texture is being that successful. And I think it's because it's like the yellow sepia based on this overlay you have on top, which I think is fine. I probably would have gone with something colder because this is a cold environment, and you added sort of this soft warming texture. Because if it was cold, you know, I would have added like a color lookup of crisp winter, and it would look like this. You know, I think this looks better just because it's colder. It's got colder colors because colors have emotions and feelings with it. So this is warm. This is cold. So I think you could have taken off whatever that filter was to do that. But I think the composition's pretty decent. How you have him grounded. I feel like he looks like he's just like a little ghosted back here. Like you've got this little sand or snow thing coming in the background. I think I think it's actually, I have that as one of my brushes, I think. So like, I think one of my brushes is that exactly. Like this sand splash. Like, is that the same thing? Yes, no? I think it might be. I don't know. I think it looks a little bit odd. It doesn't look, I'm not completely sold on it. I think that's what I'll say. The snow overlay looks nice. I think really you just need to make this DAC bigger in the background. You know, fix a little bit of the edge here of how the... Jeez. Let me get like a normal brush. There we go. You know, I think the edge needs a little bit of refining just on the clip itself. You know, like what's going on here. And if I zoom in, I can see how like crunchy the photo is, and that's probably just how the photo you found. But like cut out these little areas too. Make sure you cut out these little areas, you know, behind him, so it sells it a little bit better. But I think a little too intense on the texture on DAC. And even with that, I don't think it contrasts well enough with the font. Maybe make it a little, I don't know, smaller and lighter. I'd like to see it a couple different fonts used. I think the editing on the initial photo of DAC is pretty nice. I'm just not sold on everything overall as a whole. Alright, we've got this by Keep. Is Ryan Keep? Maybe. I don't know, there's a lot of people. We got Notorious, Conor McGregor here. So, I don't know, I feel like this is too small of a brush to example. Okay, so I feel like he's just really dark. I think you've got a good thing going on here with how these are going. This one in the front's the best. This one, you know, it's really blurry in the background, but not here, which I don't understand. Like this one seems to be blurred a little bit better, but they all seem to be like super blurred on one edge, but then immediately just only a little blurred. I think if you lessen the blur a little bit, it would have been a teeny bit better. This one's not too bad up top though. When I zoom in, you've got this sort of texture going on. I think I added that. Yeah, okay, there, that's better. So like, I like this, and I think this text looks nice, and this texture is good. I feel like I don't like it applied to Conor McGregor here, because you can barely tell this is Conor McGregor. Like, you know it's him because you can see UFC and it says McGregor, and he's got his flag and whatnot. The text is nice here. I like that. I just feel like it's too dark, and you can't really tell what it is. I think the texture and everything else is pretty good. The text you've got going on is good. Contrast with size and stuff. You've got a couple things going on. But then balance via composition. You know, maybe put something up here so you've got, you know, 3 on this side, 3 on this side for balance. I think that's the only other thing I would probably add to this, if I do say so. Alright, we got OD Designs with this here of said footballer that I do not know because I do not watch soccer. I feel like I should know who this is, but it's fine. Okay, you got light source here. So this is the light source. What do we do with that? Okay, so you've got highlights on the arms, which is good. Little highlight here, which is good. I think it's like you have the, it looks like you're just changing the color of his face here instead of changing the highlights of his face. I feel like it's just done too heavy-handed. I think it just needs to be a little bit finer to be a little bit more successful. Ball looks good though. Let's see here. You just keep playing with, you know, textures. Keep playing with the lighting. I feel like I probably would have made this side a little bit darker. You know, maybe make this a little bit darker. Oh, you put like smoke on his foot. So it was like he was like kicking a fireball or something. That's kind of fun. It's something that you don't really notice though. I think it would make more sense if the ball was on fire. I don't know. I feel like the background, just when I see this, is a little too blurred overall. Like, he just seems like he's floating in this blurred landscape. So like, I don't know what blur you used on this. I would have used like a tilt shift blur and had it like start here have the center point here, you know, and then it would blur all the way up to here or something like that, or even lower. I forget exactly what the lines look like. I think that might have helped. Might help the composition, because he's super crispy, but then it's super blurry in the background. I think just pull that blur back a little bit, and I think it would help a little bit more. But overall, it's pretty solid. Maybe put his name up here. You know, like I said, Tua, he just, you know, just had the text up here. Put his name somewhere on here, just so I know who you're talking about. For people who don't watch soccer. I think it's good that you had Tua on the other design. If you're still watching. I think you just could have done more with the text on that. For this, I think I would have added just a little bit of text. Alright, we gotta go scroll way back up here because Photoshop decided to shove this way down at the bottom. Epic Sports Pro. We've got this Hassan. Oh wait, hold on. This is Jared Allen. Okay, so you've got your logo here, and then you also have your name and your signature here. And it's pretty big. You know, your name is as big as his last name. So, like I just did from looking at this, I could get confused and think that this is you, but this is Jared Allen, which it says right there. Let's see here. Compositionally, you know, you got stuff I like. You got big guy, middle guy, kind of smaller guy, but not really, kind of the same size. You know, they're all looking this way, which is good. You know, but you've got big balance over here from small over here. I'm not crazy about the text just because it's, you know, it's white text and you've got sort of this just generic sort of drop shadow below it. You even have a little bit of an outline on it, which I'm not crazy about. You know, they're all looking over here. You could have easily just put this text right here and would have read just as well. And then you're not covering up this cool fireball you did, which I think is done pretty decently. From afar, this looks pretty decent. It might look a little heavy there, but I think right here it's not too bad. But why is he on fire and not the ball? You know, you've got the ball on fire here, which I think is solid enough. I think the texture you have here is a little too intense. You know, it's dark orange and then just pretty much white. Maybe just tone that down a teeny bit. But I think the lights up top are decent. I would have moved this. So you've got this line going straight down the middle. I would have just made Jared Allen go off the top on purpose. And then have the right maroon and the left of that yellow. So then this is all maroon as well. Looks pretty decent. They're equally edited, which is good. You know, this game might look a little orange, but it's throughout the whole thing. It's sort of like a theme you've got going on here. And then I would have tried to ground him a little bit better. You can't really tell if he's on shadows. It looks like he's kind of floating because his foot is on top of him here. Maybe blur this up a little bit and then add a floor. Overlay is kind of nice. Overall, pretty decent. Just like, you know, don't put your logo right up against the corner, and don't, you know, give your logo and stuff padding. I would just get rid of your name and how it says Epic Sports Pro in this scripty font. This is illegible. I can't even read this. I have no idea. Like, if I'm seeing this from a first time, I have no idea what this says. So get rid of this and just put, you know, your little E logo down here, or put your E logo down here. I don't think you need it on there twice. And then same thing with like the calves up here, if I can see enough. Give it some padding. You know, you've got this thing hugging, about ready to kiss the edge. You know, give it some padding. So it's got a nice C here. You know, with padding on the sides. Just a couple things that I would change myself. Alright, I think we only have a couple more. Let's take a look. We have two more. We got Bradleyseaton, who I like to say hates the color red. So we've got a nice muted color design by him. But he can do whatever he wants, you know. I think it works a little bit better than for this because nothing needs to have a red color in it. You know, like I previously said, he's done stuff with like Superman and Spider-Man, which you need red. This one you don't really need red. Okay, right after that, text down here, hard to read. Mainly here in the sole. Maybe just vignette everything. So there's a nice vignette going around the edges, and then put the text down there. It would contrast a little bit better. You know, I like that you didn't put a generic drop shadow behind it though, so that's good at least. This is very hard to see because you have this big highlight on it. You know, there's not a lot of contrast between the light down here, the light on the edges, the light here, and then the big fist in the front. you know, in the way it is. There's not a lot of contrast with it. It's just one big, really bright area, but you can't really focus on it well. Now you got these guys all set up pretty decently. I probably would have just made them all just a little bit bigger. It's kind of like that thing, make the logo bigger. Make these guys all just a little bit bigger. Or make them all the same size. Maybe we make her a little bit bigger, and make him a little bit bigger, because he seems fine here. I probably would have gotten rid of this texture you've got on top. Just because, to me, is this a scene that's on a piece of paper, or is this a scene that's supposed to be realistic and in this mountain area? Or the soul of the valley? You know, so I usually don't put big heavy textures like that on it. I'll put like a little dust texture or a lens dirt or a lens overlay to act like it's a realistic setting. But the composition's good. I think you just need to make the text a little bit more legible at the bottom with some more contrast, and maybe bump up the sizes of a couple of these guys. All right, I think we got, last but not least, we got Casey Brockhagen with the T. Higgins design, the T. Kissins design, as people have said in the Discord, just because it's what his signature looks like. It's not your fault. It looks like his signature says T. Kissins, number 85. So there's a lot going on here. Some stuff I like, some stuff I would change. The background's nice, but I feel like it doesn't contrast enough with the front. Like, it's really distracting what you've got going on here. And what is this logo even? Do the Bengals have a logo that looks like this? I don't even know what this logo is. I don't think the Bengals have that logo. You know, it could be news to me. You know, let me get me so I'm not blurry. Again, let's do that. Is that better? Okay, good. Alright, so I think we need a little bit more contrast. You've got a good composition of these two guys, and I like how you have the text going on here, but the black doesn't contrast with the jerseys. You know, I like that you're playing around and you've got size contrast with yards, different font, you know, a backer behind it. I think it just needs a little bit more fleshing out, so this is a little bit more legible. Even if it's just putting like a box here with the text in it or something like that. Because if you did that, I don't think I would mind that the background is so busy. It's just that there's a lot of information here, a lot of information up here. I'm not certain where, you know, I can see that this stuff I can, you know, look at as a composition fine. But then this just blends all in together. So I think adding a little bit of contrast would help there. You know, this is fine having your logo up there with this sort of effect you've got on the edge. I think it's I don't know, it might be a little too bright. I don't know. I think if you just made the background with this logo black with touches of gray for the highlights, or orange with touches of gray for the highlights, and made it less color contrasting, I think it might have been a little bit better, because then you would focus on this stuff in the front. Shadows are okay down here from what I can tell. You know, it looks like one bleeds a little bit on top of his foot, which is a little weird. But other than that, I think it's edited pretty decently. This background, he's a little crispy. And I would have put his name, T, somewhere. You know, we just put T right here. T. So it says T. Higgins instead of just Higgins. And then maybe, I like the 85. I would keep that. I would just get rid of his signature just because it looks like it says T. Kissins on it. And that's not your fault. That's just what his signature looks like. It's got a dumb signature. With the dust on everything, looks pretty decent. Just a couple things like that compositionally, because I think you're like trying to play with like how things are cut out, but I can't even tell, just because based on the logo, the background is just so distracting. There's no contrast. Everything just comes together down here. There's just a lot of stuff going on. You can't focus or make up what is happening. I think just a little bit of contrast with that would have helped out. So that brings us back to the beginning one. I think we hit all of them. We hit everything in here. So hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any questions or anything, hop into my Discord. If you want to submit a graphic for this, hop into my Discord. It's in the description below. Other than that, I'll see you guys Tuesday. I hope you guys had a lovely holiday, and I'll see you guys next time. You guys have a lovely rest of your weekend.